What if I told you that the very room you trust most, the place you step into each morning to freshen up and each night to feel clean and comforted, might actually be the reason you're feeling sick more often than you realize? The bathroom, the room we usually associate with hygiene and safety, can quietly become a breeding ground for hidden dangers. And here's the twist: these dangers don't show up in obvious ways. They're not always the dirt you see on the tiles or the dust you can wipe away. They're the silent irritants, the invisible spores, the lingering toxins that go unnoticed until they begin to take a toll on your health. For seniors over 60, the effects of these invisible threats can be even harsher. A towel that never fully dries may carry mildew that irritates your lungs. A toothbrush that looks fine on the surface may harbor bacteria that inflame your gums. Even that lavender air freshener you plug in for a calming scent may be releasing chemicals that cause headaches or dizziness. And that little drip of moisture you hardly notice in the corner? It could be fueling mold that impacts your breathing day after day. The truth is, danger doesn't always look dangerous. That's why it's so easy to miss. But staying blind to it could mean more restless nights, more unexplained rashes, or more mornings where you wake up feeling heavy instead of refreshed. Stay with me, because today we're revealing 10 hidden dangers in your bathroom that most seniors never even think about. These aren't just tips, they're protective steps that can safeguard your health, your comfort, and your peace of mind. So before we dive in, tap like and hit subscribe right now, because one small change today could protect your health for years to come. Clovis Hensley is 72 years old, a retired music teacher who spent most of his life in a small town in Ohio. For more than 40 years, his days were filled with choirs rehearsing for recitals, teenagers stumbling through scales, and the proud moments when shy students finally found their voice. Music was his rhythm, his discipline, and his joy. When he retired, Clovis carried that same sense of order back into his home. He loved a neat living room, shelves stacked with old sheet music, and above all, a bathroom that sparkled like a polished instrument. To him, the bathroom wasn't just another room, it was a space of comfort, routine, and control. Shiny tiles, neatly folded towels, a clean sink that smelled faintly of soap, everything suggested safety and care. But then came the part he couldn't explain. For months, Clovis noticed he would leave the bathroom feeling off. It started small. A light cough after brushing his teeth. A sudden sneeze when he stepped out of the shower. At first, he shrugged it off as the quirks of aging. Maybe it's just allergies, he thought, or maybe I stood up too quickly. But the episodes grew more noticeable. Sometimes he felt short of breath. Other times, a strange dizziness forced him to grip the counter to steady himself. The bathroom, his spotless pride, was slowly becoming the place where he felt weakest. What made it more confusing was how invisible the cause seemed. There was no dirt, no obvious grime, no clutter to blame. And that's the part that resonates with so many seniors. We keep our homes looking clean, yet unseen hazards still lurk. The truth is, danger doesn't always look like dirt. It can hide inside the very items we've trusted for years. Clovis didn't know it then, but his story holds a mirror up for countless older adults. His spotless bathroom was not nearly as safe as it seemed. And what he, and many of us, overlook in that daily space may be the very reason we feel sick, drained, or restless without ever connecting the dots. Here's what Clovis, and what so many of us, overlook in our bathrooms every single day. Item 1. Old toothbrushes and gunky holders. Clovis had always been meticulous about his toothbrush. As a music teacher, he once told his students that keeping their instruments clean was as important as practicing their scales. He applied the same discipline to his hygiene. His toothbrush sat in a little ceramic holder by the sink, neatly upright, ready to use twice a day. To anyone who walked in, it looked harmless, ordinary, even reassuring. But what Clovis didn't realize was that the toothbrush he trusted had been quietly betraying him. The bristles, once firm and sharp, had frayed into soft, bent strands that no longer cleaned effectively. Each stroke across his gums was less about removing plaque and more about smearing hidden bacteria deeper into the crevices of his mouth. The real culprit wasn't just the brush but the holder itself. Dampness from the bathroom air mixed with tiny drips of toothpaste and water collected at the bottom, forming a slimy film invisible unless you lifted it to look closely. Day after day, Clovis was unknowingly dipping his toothbrush back into that same breeding ground before putting it into his mouth. For someone his age, with gums already more vulnerable to infection, this wasn't just a minor oversight. It was a direct threat to his oral health and, by extension, his overall well-being. Seniors are at greater risk for conditions like gum disease, which is closely tied to heart health. What seemed like a simple bathroom habit was, in reality, a health risk with far-reaching consequences. Clovis began to notice subtle changes. His gums felt more tender, and sometimes he saw a faint streak of blood when he spat into the sink. At first, he thought it was just aging catching up with him. But the truth was simpler and more dangerous. His bathroom routine had fallen into the trap of if it looks fine, it must be fine. He didn't realize that dentists recommend replacing a toothbrush every 3 to 4 months, or even sooner after a cold or flu. He also didn't know that holders need regular scrubbing, just like any other dish or cup in the kitchen. For seniors, this lesson hits especially close to home. Our immune defenses don't rebound the way they used to. A small infection in the gums can cascade into bigger health concerns. The solution, however, is simple and empowering. Replace the toothbrush every season, mark it on the calendar the way you'd mark a birthday or doctor's visit. Empty and clean the holder once a week with hot, soapy water, just like washing dishes. These small steps may feel insignificant, but they create a ripple effect: fresher breath, healthier gums, and peace of mind that your daily routine is truly keeping you clean, not quietly making you sick. Here's the hard truth Clovis had to learn. Sometimes the smallest object in your bathroom carries the biggest risk. And the toothbrush, the tool meant to protect your health, can be the very thing stealing it away if you don't stay ahead of it. Item 2. Medicines in the bathroom cabinet. Clovis had always believed that keeping his medications in the bathroom cabinet was the most logical choice. After all, it was right there above the sink, neatly within reach every morning and every night. The ritual seemed flawless: brush his teeth, open the cabinet, take his blood pressure pill, and rinse with a glass of water. It felt efficient, dependable, even comforting. But what he never realized was that this familiar habit was slowly undermining the very medicines he trusted to protect his health. The bathroom, with its constant waves of steam from showers and shifts in temperature, was the worst possible environment for his prescriptions. Humidity seeped into the bottles, breaking down the pills little by little. Labels faded, capsules stuck together, and some tablets began to crumble at the edges. What Clovis thought were reliable doses of life-saving medicine were, in reality, becoming weaker with each passing day. For a senior depending on medication to regulate blood pressure, ease pain, or manage chronic illness, the consequences of degraded drugs could be serious, sometimes even dangerous. He began to notice the signs without connecting them. His blood pressure readings seemed inconsistent, swinging higher despite faithfully taking his pills. On some days, he felt lightheaded or unusually tired, wondering if age was simply catching up with him. But it wasn't age at all, it was the quiet sabotage of moisture on his medicine bottles. The turning point came when his daughter visited and spotted the row of pill containers in the steamy cabinet. With gentle urgency, she explained that doctors and pharmacists always recommend storing medicine in a cool, dry place, never in a bathroom. She reminded him that potency matters, especially for seniors. A weaker pill is not just ineffective, it's risky, because it creates a false sense of security while the condition quietly worsens. Clovis felt unsettled at first, but also relieved to know the problem had a solution. He gathered every bottle, checked expiration dates, and discarded the ones that were outdated. Then he moved the rest into a small organizer by his bedside. The difference was striking. His readings stabilized, his dizziness eased, and he felt reassured that his health was finally back under control. For seniors, the lesson is clear: the bathroom cabinet is not your friend. It's time to rethink old habits and relocate those vital bottles to a safer spot. Don't let steam and humidity steal the effectiveness of the medicine you rely on every single day. Still keeping your meds in the bathroom? Comment moved once you've taken the step to protect your health. Item 3. Moldy bath mats and shower curtains. Clovis always felt a sense of relief when his feet touched the soft rubber bath mat after a shower. At 72, he understood how important it was to avoid slips and falls. One accident could change everything. That mat symbolized safety, and the shower curtain that swayed gently at his side gave him privacy. On the surface, both seemed harmless, even protective. Yet, what he couldn't see was the quiet danger taking root beneath them. Bath mats, constantly exposed to dampness and soap residue, become the perfect breeding ground for mold. Hidden deep in the fibers or tucked underneath where the eye rarely lingers, spores multiply with every shower. The same happens with shower curtains, especially along the folds that cling to the tub. Even when they looked clean, Clovis's mat and curtain carried faint gray streaks and invisible mold colonies. Each time he stepped out of the shower, microscopic spores were released into the air, floating unseen, but ready to irritate lungs and sinuses. At first, Clovis ignored the small hints. A musty odor after a hot shower. A light cough that seemed to last longer than it should. Some mornings he woke up with a stuffy nose, assuming it was just the changing seasons. But the truth was that his safe mat was quietly hurting his breathing. For seniors, especially those with asthma, COPD, or weakened immunity, exposure to mold can be far more than an inconvenience. It can trigger real health crises. The emotional sting cut deep. How could something meant to guard him from slipping betray him like this? It was unsettling to realize that safety sometimes hides risk. That bath mat, once a symbol of protection, was quietly compromising the very independence he valued most. The solution came when Clovis decided to act. He replaced his old mat with one designed to be mildew-resistant and easy to hang dry. He swapped his plastic curtain liner for a washable fabric one, tossing it in the laundry every month. He also began using a small squeegee to pull water off the tiles, reducing the dampness that fed mold in the first place. The difference was noticeable almost immediately. The musty smell disappeared, and his coughing eased. Showers once again felt refreshing instead of heavy. For Clovis, it wasn't just about swapping out bathroom items, it was about reclaiming confidence in his daily routine. For seniors, the message is clear: the things meant to keep you steady should never steal your breath. A fresh mat and a washable curtain aren't luxuries, they are small, vital investments in safety and health. That mat protecting your balance may be hurting your breathing. Replace it before it robs you of the comfort you deserve. Item 4. Scented sprays, plug-ins and strong candles. For Clovis, scent was memory. Lavender especially reminded him of his late wife, who used to tuck small sachets into drawers and closets so that every corner of the house carried her gentle touch. Wanting to hold on to that feeling, he began filling his bathroom with lavender plug-ins and sprays. He even added a candle that he lit during evening baths. To him, it wasn't just fragrance, it was comfort, nostalgia, and a reminder of love. But over time, the very scents that were meant to soothe him began to steal his balance. It started subtly. A dull headache that crept in after his morning routine. A wave of dizziness when he lingered too long in the scented space. Sometimes he left the bathroom with a strange tightness in his chest, but he dismissed it, telling himself it was just part of aging. He didn't know that many air fresheners, sprays, and candles release volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, chemicals that can irritate the lungs, trigger headaches, and make dizziness worse. Seniors, with bodies more sensitive to environmental triggers, are especially vulnerable. The emotional realization was heavy. What Clovis thought was a connection to his wife's memory was in fact making him sick. The lavender spray, the plug-in humming quietly on the wall, the candle flickering beside the tub, all of it created an illusion of freshness while polluting the very air he was breathing. He felt betrayed by the products he thought were helping him find peace. With encouragement from his daughter, Clovis took a step back. He unplugged the devices, threw away the sprays, and set the candle aside. The first few days felt empty, as though the bathroom had lost its warmth. But soon he noticed something else. The headache stopped, the dizziness eased, and his breathing felt lighter. The bathroom, once heavy with chemical fragrance, now carried the crisp, natural scent of clean air. He found simple, safer alternatives. Running the exhaust fan after showers kept the space fresh. Opening a small window allowed natural airflow. He even placed a bowl of baking soda on the counter to quietly absorb odors. Over time, the bathroom felt not just neutral, but genuinely clean. For seniors, the lesson is deeply personal. Comfort doesn't come from chemical scents, it comes from knowing the air around you is safe. A memory of lavender should make your heart lighter, not your head heavier. Decluttering sprays, plugins, and candles isn't about giving up comfort, it's about reclaiming your health and peace of mind. Like Clovis, you may discover that true freshness comes not from a can or a plug, but from air that lets you breathe freely. Item 5. Loofahs and mesh poofs. Clovis liked to think of his shower as the most refreshing part of his day. He took comfort in routines, and for years, that meant reaching for the same bright blue mesh poof that hung by the faucet. It lathered his soap into a rich foam, and he enjoyed the scrubbed clean feeling it left behind. To him, the loofah was a small luxury, a sign that he was still caring for himself with dignity and attention. But what Clovis didn't realize was that this simple tool of self-care had become a bacterial sponge, holding on to yesterday's germs and rubbing them back onto his skin. The truth is that loofahs and poofs thrive in warm, damp environments. Their tangled fibers trap soap residue, dead skin, and moisture, creating the perfect breeding ground for bacteria and even mold. Each time Clovis hung it back after use, it never fully dried. Every time he picked it up again, he was pressing unseen microbes against his skin. As seniors age, the skin becomes thinner and more fragile, making it easier for bacteria to slip in and cause irritation or infection. Clovis noticed small signs, tiny bumps on his arms, occasional itching that didn't go away after rinsing. He dismissed them at first as harmless dryness. But over time, the irritation became more noticeable. When his doctor asked about his shower routine, Clovis was surprised to learn that the culprit could be his trusty poof. The very thing he thought was keeping him clean was actually working against him. The realization stung. How could something so ordinary, so tied to his daily rhythm, betray him in this way? It wasn't easy to let go, especially since the loofah felt tied to his independence. But once he understood the risk, he knew it was time for a change. He replaced the mesh poof with a silicone scrubber that dried quickly and resisted bacterial buildup. On other days, he used a clean washcloth, tossing it in the laundry after every use. The difference was immediate. The itching faded, his skin cleared, and showers felt lighter and truly cleansing. What once seemed like a harmless routine had quietly been wearing down his health, but now he felt confident that his daily ritual was safe again. For seniors, the lesson is powerful. Not everything marketed as clean is truly protecting you. Some habits, carried for decades, need to be rethought. What's supposed to scrub you clean may actually rub on yesterday's germs. Loofah loyalist or ready to switch? Comment switch if you're trying silicone and taking this small but important step toward better health. Item 6. Damp towels and washcloths. Clovis took pride in how neatly his towels were arranged. Folded just so, with the edges aligned, they hung on the rack like a small display of order and care. To visitors, his bathroom looked tidy and well-kept, the kind of space that reassured you of his attention to detail. But behind that neatness lurked a hidden problem. Those same towels rarely dried completely between uses. The bathroom, already a humid environment from daily showers, kept them damp for hours, sometimes all day. And dampness is the perfect invitation for mildew and bacteria. At first, Clovis didn't notice. A faint musty odor seemed harmless, easily ignored. Over time, though, he began to feel that the towels didn't smell as fresh, even after being washed. Then came the irritation, a subtle itch on his arms, occasional redness on his cheeks after drying his face. He thought it was his skin becoming more sensitive with age. What he didn't realize was that he was pressing mildew and bacteria into his skin every day. The very fabric that was meant to protect him was quietly betraying him. For seniors, this danger carries extra weight. Aging skin is thinner, more prone to irritation, and slower to heal. Respiratory systems, too, are more sensitive to spores that come from mildew. What seems like just a towel can become a recurring source of discomfort and low-level illness. The emotional sting is sharp. This is not a cluttered countertop or a dusty corner you can choose to ignore. This is what you put directly against your face, your hands, your body. Something so intimate, so ordinary, should never be the thing that compromises your health. When Clovis finally paid attention, the changes he made were simple but transformative. He rotated his towels more frequently, washing them every 3 days instead of once a week. He added an extra bar to give each towel room to breathe and dry fully. He even began using hooks near a sunny window, allowing airflow to do its work. The musty smell disappeared, his skin irritation faded, and his bathroom suddenly felt fresher. The lesson runs deeper than laundry. It's about not overlooking the most ordinary routines. Seniors often think of decluttering as removing boxes or furniture, but sometimes it's as simple as letting go of an old towel that no longer serves you. Mildew grows in silence, but its effects are anything but silent on your body. And it's the very thing you press against your face and hands every day. Fresh towels aren't just a comfort, they're protection, dignity, and a daily assurance that you're truly caring for yourself. Item 7. Expired eye makeup and old creams. Clovis never wore makeup himself, of course, but tucked away in his bathroom cabinet were little reminders of the past, jars of creams, tubes of mascara, and small bottles of lotion that had once belonged to his late wife. Some were gifts from their children, others souvenirs from holidays they had taken together. Though she was gone, he couldn't bring himself to throw them out. To him, they weren't just products, they were pieces of memory. Over the years, though, he also added his own lotions for dry skin, ointments for aches, and creams passed down by neighbors or picked up on sale. Slowly, his bathroom became less a place of utility and more a quiet museum of bottles and jars, many far older than they should have been. The problem with this kind of collection is invisible but real. Expired creams and cosmetics break down over time. Preservatives lose their power, leaving the contents vulnerable to bacteria. Eye makeup, especially mascara and eyeliner, carries even greater risks. Once it's past its date, it can fuel infections that threaten one of our most precious senses, sight. Clovis didn't understand that those tubes and jars, sitting undisturbed, were no longer harmless keepsakes but potential health hazards. When he occasionally applied an old lotion to his dry hands or used a cream for a rash, he was rubbing in products that had long since turned against him. The signs came slowly. Irritation that lingered on his skin, redness that felt out of place, and a burning sensation that made him wash the cream off almost immediately. He blamed his skin, assuming it was becoming too sensitive with age. But in truth, it wasn't his body failing him, it was the products. That cream from a holiday gift may have held memories, but it no longer held kindness for his skin. The emotional conflict here is real. For seniors, throwing away old products often feels like discarding a piece of history or admitting waste. But health should never take second place to nostalgia. When Clovis's daughter gently explained the dangers, he realized that holding on to expired items wasn't honoring his wife's memory, it was keeping a silent risk in his home. So he made a change. He cleared out the old jars, keeping only the most recent items. For new products, he began writing the date of opening with a marker so he'd know when it was time to toss them. He placed a small basket in his cabinet for just the essentials, freeing the rest of the space from clutter and danger. The result? His skin began to heal, his irritation faded, and his bathroom no longer carried the hidden weight of the past. For seniors, the lesson is simple but powerful. Memories live in our hearts, not in expired jars. Decluttering old makeup and creams is not about vanity, it's about safety, dignity, and giving your skin the gentle care it deserves. Item 8. Showerhead and faucet aerator buildup. Clovis always thought his bathroom sparkled. The tiles were scrubbed, the mirror shined, and the sink was spotless. But if you leaned in close to his showerhead, you'd notice something he never did. Tiny white crusts clinging to the nozzles, a rough buildup along the edges of the faucet aerator. To him, it looked like nothing more than hard water stains, the kind of cosmetic imperfection you simply learn to ignore. But the truth was far more unsettling. That crust wasn't just mineral buildup, it was a shelter for bacteria that thrived in the damp, dark spaces of his bathroom. Every time Clovis turned on the shower, water sprayed through those clogged openings, carrying with it microscopic droplets laced with germs. The mist filled the air he breathed in deeply as the steam rose. He assumed the heaviness in his chest afterward was from the hot water or the humidity, but in reality, It was his own shower spreading bacteria into the air. For seniors with delicate lungs, asthma, or weaker immune systems, those tiny exposures can build up into real health issues: coughing, sinus infections, even bouts of dizziness. The emotional weight of this realization was heavy. Water was supposed to cleanse him, not harm him. A shower should leave you refreshed, not worried about what invisible particles are swirling around your bathroom. It felt almost like betrayal, that the very water he trusted most was passing through a filter of germs before reaching him. Once his daughter pointed out the crust and explained the risk, Clovis decided to act. He unscrewed the shower head, placed it in a bag of vinegar overnight, and scrubbed away the residue with an old toothbrush. The faucet aerator received the same treatment. When he reattached them, the difference was immediate. The water flowed freely, the pressure felt stronger, and for the first time in months, he left the shower without that heavy, tight feeling in his chest. Clovis made it part of his routine. Once a month, he checked the showerhead and faucet, giving them a simple cleaning. It became as natural as washing the sink or wiping the counter. Over time, he noticed that his breathing was easier and his bathroom truly felt like a place of renewal again. For seniors, the message is urgent yet empowering. Every splash may mist bacteria into the air you breathe. Don't ignore the signs of buildup just because they look harmless. They're not. Take an evening, soak and scrub, and reclaim the safety of your shower. When did you last clean your showerhead? Drop the month and year in the comments, and if it's been too long, let today be the day you take action. Item 9. High-touch bathroom surfaces, handles, switches, flush lever. Clovis prided himself on the way his bathroom sparkled. The sink gleamed, the mirror shined, and the countertops looked clean enough to eat off of. Whenever guests stopped by, they often complimented how spotless everything seemed. But what Clovis didn't realize was that the very spots he never thought to clean, the light switches, the door handle, and the toilet flush lever, were quietly holding on to germs. These high-touch surfaces blended into the background, easy to overlook. Yet they were touched dozens of times a day, not just by him but also by visitors, creating invisible highways for bacteria and viruses to travel. At first, the danger didn't cross his mind. After all, a shiny bathroom feels safe. But then he noticed how often he was catching little stomach bugs or dealing with sniffles that seemed to linger longer than they should. He assumed it was just the reality of aging, a body less able to fight off minor infections. In truth, every time he turned on the light, closed the door, or flushed the toilet, he was picking up germs and carrying them with him. Even when his counters shined, these hidden spots could still spread sickness. The emotional sting was sharp. To realize that his efforts at cleaning, his hours of scrubbing, wiping, and polishing, were undone by the smallest details felt discouraging. How could something so ordinary, so invisible, undermine all his work? Yet it was also eye-opening. It wasn't about cleaning harder, it was about cleaning smarter. Once his granddaughter pointed out the smudges on the light switch, Clovis made a change. He created a simple system. Once a week, he took a disinfectant wipe and ran it over the light switches, the door handle, and the flush lever. The whole task took less than 5 minutes, but it gave him a peace of mind he hadn't felt before. He also began keeping a small caddy in a nearby closet stocked with wipes, gloves, and a spray bottle, making the job effortless. The difference was real. He noticed fewer bouts of illness, and when friends visited, he felt confident knowing his bathroom was not just visually clean but hygienically safe. What once felt like invisible sabotage now felt like control reclaimed. For seniors, the lesson is powerful. Germs don't always hide where you expect. Clean mirrors and polished tiles are nice, but the real health risks are often in the forgotten corners your hand touches every day. Protecting those surfaces isn't about perfection, it's about dignity, independence, and ensuring that the place you trust most doesn't quietly become the source of your sickness. Item 10. Poor ventilation and trapped moisture. Clovis loved his long, hot showers. The rising steam felt soothing on his joints, a small daily comfort that eased the stiffness of age. The bathroom would fog up completely, the mirror blurring, the air thick with warmth. To him, it felt like a private spa, a place where he could breathe deeply and let his body relax. But what he didn't realize was that the same steam he found comforting was leaving behind moisture that never fully cleared. Over time, his bathroom had become a sealed chamber of damp air, the perfect breeding ground for mold, mildew, and lingering irritants. The danger wasn't visible at first. There were no black streaks on the tiles, no obvious signs of mold creeping along the ceiling. Yet the effects were undeniable. Clovis began waking up with a stuffy nose, coughing more often, and noticing that his towels never seemed to fully dry. He chalked it up to aging, to weaker lungs or seasonal allergies. But the truth was simpler and far more unsettling. Poor ventilation was quietly eroding his health. You may not see the problem, but your lungs feel it with every breath. The emotional sting was powerful. This room, which he had trusted as a place of refreshment, was silently betraying him. The very air he inhaled during his most relaxing routine was carrying spores and irritants, leaving him drained instead of renewed. For seniors, especially those with asthma, COPD, or weakened immunity, poor ventilation is more than an inconvenience, it's a hidden threat that steals comfort and well-being. When his daughter visited and wrinkled her nose at the faint musty smell, Clovis finally faced the truth. Together, they cleaned the fan cover, discovering layers of dust choking its ability to pull air out. They started running the fan not just during showers, but for 20 minutes afterward. On cooler days, he cracked the window to allow fresh air inside. She even bought him a small dehumidifier and a hygrometer, teaching him how to keep humidity between 30 and 50%. The changes felt small but made a world of difference. The musty odor vanished, his towels dried faster, and his breathing felt easier. For the first time in months, Clovis left his bathroom feeling truly refreshed. It wasn't about scrubbing harder or spending more, it was about respecting the air, the invisible lifeline we often take for granted. For seniors, the message is clear: a bathroom isn't truly clean if the air itself is unhealthy. Ventilation is not a luxury, it's protection. With a few mindful steps, you can transform your bathroom back into the haven it should be, a place that restores your body, your breath, and your peace of mind. When Clovis finally understood what was really happening in his bathroom, he decided it was time to take action. One by one, he began making changes, not with dramatic renovations or costly upgrades, but with small, meaningful steps that any senior could take. The frayed toothbrush and slimy holder went straight into the trash, replaced with a fresh brush marked on his calendar for routine swaps. The stack of damp, musty towels was cleared out, replaced with clean ones he rotated every few days so they always dried completely. The lavender plug-in that had been a constant presence for years was unplugged for good, along with the sprays and candles that had quietly been clouding his air. The shower head, once crusted with buildup, was scrubbed until it gleamed, its water flowing freely again. And in the corner of the bathroom, a small dehumidifier began humming softly, pulling excess moisture from the air, restoring freshness that he hadn't realized he'd been missing. The results didn't take long to show. Clovis noticed his breathing felt lighter. The headaches and dizzy spells that had unsettled him began to fade. The itchiness on his skin calmed. Most importantly, he no longer left the bathroom feeling weaker than when he had entered. For the first time in years, the room felt safe again, no longer a silent thief of health, but a true sanctuary. He looked at his reflection in the mirror one evening and realized he had reclaimed not just his bathroom, but his peace of mind. Your bathroom should be your safe haven, not a silent thief of health. That's the real transformation Clovis experienced, and it's the one waiting for anyone willing to make a few small, intentional changes. For seniors, this isn't about creating a showroom-perfect space. It's about protecting the air you breathe, the items you touch, and the routines that shape your daily life. Decluttering isn't just about space, it's about health, dignity, and peace of mind. So if this opened your eyes, don't stop here. Hit that like button, share this with a friend over 60 who deserves to feel safe at home, and subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors, because every senior deserves a bathroom that heals, not harms.